Have you ever been in a room, and felt it, that invisible force, that presence you can't quite explain? Someone sitting quietly, barely saying a word, yet somehow, everyone listens when they move, when they shift, even when they just breathe. It's unsettling, almost like magic, but it's not. It's not magic, it's silent power. And the truth is, most people never notice it, or worse, they underestimate it. You see, we've been taught that strength is loud, that influence comes from arguing, persuading, proving ourselves. But think about it, the most dangerous, most respected people, the ones who shape decisions, control outcomes, often speak the least. They don't shout. They don't need to. Their silence says more than 1,000 words ever could. Now, imagine if you could move through the world like that. Confident, calm, unshakable. A person whose silence makes people reveal their true intentions. A person who outsmarts anyone, without uttering a single word. It might sound impossible, or even unfair. But by the end of this video, you'll see, it's not only possible, it's within your reach. So, tell me, are you ready to step into a world where silence is your greatest weapon? Because what you're about to learn will change the way you interact with everyone, forever. Number 1, the power of silence. Let me tell you a story. There was a man in a bustling corporate office, always quiet, never the loudest in the room, never the one trying to impress the boss. People often ignored him, dismissed him as shy, unimportant, harmless. But something strange always happened. When decisions were being made, when tensions ran high, when arguments sparked, somehow, he always came out ahead. Not because he was louder, not because he convinced anyone with words. But because he observed. Because he listened. And because he understood something most people never do, silence is a tool, a weapon, a language of its own. Think about it. Have you ever noticed someone who doesn't speak much, yet everyone waits for them to comment? Their words, when they finally come, carry weight. Their opinions suddenly seem like the truth. Why? Because silence creates space, space for thought, space for reflection, and, most importantly, space for others to reveal themselves. The irony is, the more people try to fill the room with noise, the more they give away their intentions, their weaknesses, their fears. The quiet ones, they watch, they absorb, they learn, they calculate. And then, without saying a word, they make their move. It's subtle, almost invisible, but devastatingly effective. This is the power of silence, the kind that Stoics understood centuries ago. A power that doesn't shout, doesn't demand attention, but commands it anyway. It's a quiet authority, the kind that makes people lean in, without realizing why. And here's what's fascinating. You don't need to be the loudest, the smartest, or the most experienced, to wield it. All you need is control. Control of your words. Control of your reactions. Control of your presence. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to harness this power in your own life. How to outsmart anyone, without arguing, without convincing, without raising your voice. And most importantly, how to make people listen, respect, even fear your silence, all while remaining completely calm, completely unshakable. Because the truth is, words are cheap. Anyone can speak. Anyone can shout. Anyone can try to prove themselves. But silence, real, intentional silence, is priceless. And once you master it, nothing, and I mean nothing, will ever be the same again. Number 2, observing without being seen. Imagine a chessboard. Every piece moving, every move calculated, every player trying to outsmart the other. Now imagine, one player doesn't rush, doesn't react, doesn't show what they're thinking. They sit quietly, observing, absorbing, predicting. And when the moment comes, they make the perfect move, catching everyone off guard. This is the power of observing without being seen. It's more than just watching. It's noticing the little things, the micro-expressions, the hesitation, the shift in tone, the subtle body language that most people miss. Let me tell you a story. There was a young woman, working in a team full of loud, opinionated colleagues. She never spoke first in meetings, rarely raised her hand, often seemed invisible. Yet, she always knew exactly what the team was thinking. She knew who was anxious, who was bluffing, who wanted control. By the time her colleagues realized it, she had already positioned herself, made the right alliances, taken control, all without saying a word. Why? Because she observed. She listened, she studied, she let others reveal their strategies themselves. And here's the key: people reveal everything when you don't interrupt, when you stay silent, when you just watch. Have you ever tried this? Just sitting back, letting people speak, noticing the tiny clues, the slips, the inconsistencies, the real intentions hidden behind their words. It's incredible how much information comes your way, if you're paying attention. The truth is, most people are too busy trying to prove themselves, to dominate the conversation, to show they matter. And in that rush, they give away their power. But you, the silent observer, you stay calm. You stay composed. You see the game, even when others think there's no game at all. And here's something fascinating. Once you master this skill, people start to underestimate you. They think silence equals weakness, ignorance, or passivity. But in reality, it's a quiet strength. An invisible edge. A power that grows while they exhaust themselves talking, arguing, revealing their moves too early. So here's your first takeaway. Start noticing. Start observing. Sit back in conversations. Watch how people react. Notice the pauses, the hesitations, the fleeting expressions, the words they don't say. Because that is where the real information lives. And remember, the less people know you're watching, the more you understand. The more you stay hidden in plain sight, the greater your silent advantage. In the next section, we'll explore how to take what you observe and turn it into a weapon no one sees coming. How listening, really listening, can make people unknowingly reveal their secrets. And when you learn this, you'll start to see the world, not as a place full of noise, but as a chessboard, where every move counts, and silence wins. Number 3, listening as a weapon. Most people think listening is passive. Just a polite way to nod while waiting for their turn to speak. But the truth is completely different. Listening, really listening, is one of the most powerful weapons you can ever possess. Let me tell you a story. There was a negotiator, one of the best in his field. He never raised his voice. He never interrupted. He didn't need flashy tactics or aggressive arguments. Instead, he listened. Every word, every hesitation, every sigh. He paid attention to what was said, and what wasn't said. And while the other side thought they were in control, revealing their plans, their desires, even their weaknesses, he was quietly collecting every piece of information. By the end of the meeting, he had turned the entire negotiation in his favor. Without ever raising his voice. Without ever arguing. Without ever threatening. This is the true power of listening. It's not about being polite. It's about gaining insight, understanding motivations, seeing the truth behind the words. Think about your own life for a second. How often do you listen, really listen, when someone is speaking? Or are you just planning your next reply, trying to prove your point, trying to dominate the conversation? Here's the key: when you genuinely listen, when you absorb without judgment, people reveal themselves. Their fears, their desires, their weaknesses, even the little secrets they didn't know they were sharing. And the best part? They don't even realize you're doing it. To them, you're just polite, calm, unassuming. But in reality, you're gathering intelligence. You're learning, predicting, preparing, positioning yourself. Imagine applying this in your workplace, in negotiations, in personal relationships. You start noticing patterns, intentions, hidden agendas. You begin to see the truth behind every conversation. And when you finally speak, when you finally act, it's precise, deliberate, unstoppable. Because silence, combined with attentive listening, turns ordinary people into invisible strategists. It turns ordinary conversations into opportunities. And it turns knowledge into power. So here's your next step. Start practicing active listening. Not just hearing words, but noticing the meaning behind them. Observe tone, pauses, hesitation, gestures. Notice what isn't said, because often, the silence speaks louder than words ever could. In the next section, we'll take this further. We'll uncover the unspoken influence, the invisible power you can wield. How presence, posture, and subtle actions can make people follow you, even when you never say a word. Number 4, the unspoken influence. Have you ever walked into a room and felt someone's presence, before they even said a word? You don't know why, but something about them commands respect, attention, even fear. That is the unspoken influence. The kind of power that doesn't shout. The kind of power that quietly moves the room, shapes decisions, and changes outcomes. Let me tell you a story. There was a CEO, a man known not for his speeches, not for his charisma, but for the way he simply entered a room. People listened when he was silent. They shifted their positions, adjusted their tone, aligned their ideas, without a single instruction. He never forced authority, he simply existed in a way that made people follow. This isn't magic, it's psychological. Humans respond to presence, to confidence, to composure. When someone exudes calm certainty, when they don't react to provocations, when their silence is intentional, others begin to mirror them, respect them, and even defer to them, subconsciously. Think about it, in everyday life, in your workplace, in social settings. Have you noticed someone who doesn't argue, doesn't seek attention, yet everyone gravitates toward them? Their influence isn't in words, it's in their energy, their demeanor, the subtle signals they send without speaking. This is exactly what the Stoics understood. They knew that words are fleeting, noise is temporary. But presence, intentional action, silent authority, that lasts. It shapes how people perceive you, how they respond to you, how they react even before you say a word. Here's a practical insight: posture, gaze, and measured movement aren't trivial. They communicate confidence, control, and quiet power. Even a slight pause before responding, even the way you hold yourself while listening, can shift the dynamic of a conversation. People pick up on these cues, often without realizing it, and adjust their behavior accordingly. The key takeaway: your influence doesn't need to be loud, it doesn't need to be verbal. It only needs to exist. It's subtle, invisible, and often underestimated. And that's the beauty of unspoken power. It works when no one expects it, it moves the room before words even arrive. So, imagine combining what we've learned so far. Observing without being seen, listening as a weapon, and now, projecting influence silently through your presence. You're not just a participant anymore. You become the quiet force that shapes outcomes, controls situations, and outsmarts everyone around you. In the next section, we'll explore emotional detachment. How staying calm in chaos, and refusing to react, gives you an unstoppable edge. Because true silent power doesn't just influence others, it masters your own mind first. Number 5, emotional detachment and clarity. Imagine a storm raging around you, people shouting, chaos everywhere, deadlines failing, emotions running wild. Now imagine someone standing in the middle of it all, calm, unshaken, silent. Everyone around them loses control, but they remain steady. That is emotional detachment. Not indifference, not coldness, but clarity under pressure. Let me tell you a story. There was a man in a high-stakes negotiation, tempers flared, the other side tried to provoke him. They expected a reaction, a defensive argument, anything to throw him off balance. But he didn't react. He simply observed, measured, and stayed composed. And as the tension grew, the other side began revealing everything, their mistakes, their vulnerabilities, without realizing it. Why does this work? Because when you control your emotions, when you refuse to react, you create a quiet authority. You signal confidence, strength, and intelligence. People feel it, even subconsciously, and they start adapting to your calmness. Think about your own life. How often do you react immediately to anger, criticism, or chaos? Most people do, and in doing so, they give away power. They let emotions control them, dictate decisions, influence outcomes. But the person who masters emotional detachment, who pauses, breathes, observes. They see things clearly, they act strategically, they remain untouchable. This is a core principle of Stoicism. To be unmoved by what you cannot control. To master your own mind before trying to influence others. To act with clarity, not impulse. And here's what's fascinating. When you remain detached, calm, observant, you don't just survive chaos, you use it to your advantage. People around you expose themselves, make mistakes, reveal their weaknesses. All because you didn't play their game, you stayed in control of your own. So here's your next step. Practice detachment in small moments. The next time someone tries to provoke you, pause. Breathe. Observe. Respond deliberately, not emotionally. You'll notice something amazing. People start to respect your calm. They start to follow your lead. Without you ever having to assert dominance, or raise your voice. By combining observation, listening, silent presence, and now, emotional clarity. You are slowly becoming the invisible strategist. The person who outsmarts everyone, without them realizing it. In the next section, we'll dive into strategic retreat. How knowing when to speak, and when to stay silent, can turn any situation in your favor. Because sometimes, your silence at the right moment is the most powerful move you can make. Number 6, strategic retreat. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do, is nothing at all. Not because you're weak, not because you're afraid. But because you know that silence, at the right moment, is far stronger than words. Let me tell you a story. There was a general, facing an enemy that vastly outnumbered his own forces. Everyone around him was panicking, shouting orders, trying to act, to react, to control the chaos. But he did something unexpected. He waited. He retreated strategically. He observed. He allowed the enemy to overextend, to reveal their weaknesses, without a single move from his side. By the time he acted, the outcome was inevitable. He didn't need to rush. He didn't need to argue or persuade. His patience, his deliberate silence, had already won the battle. This is the essence of strategic retreat. It's not giving up, it's not avoidance. It's choosing the right moment to act, and the right moment to stay silent. Because when you speak too soon, when you act impulsively, you reveal your hand. You give power to others, you lose control of the situation. Think about your daily life, in meetings, in arguments, in negotiations, even in personal relationships. How often do people rush to speak, to defend, to prove themselves? And what usually happens? They overcommit. They expose their weaknesses. They regret their words. Now imagine the opposite. Pausing, observing, calculating your response. Choosing when to remain silent, and when your words will have the maximum impact. The difference is staggering. This is a skill the most powerful people in history mastered. They understood timing, patience, the art of the calculated pause. And when they finally spoke, when they finally acted, it was precise, effective, unstoppable. Here's the takeaway. Your silence is a tool. Your patience, a weapon. Learn when to retreat, when to hold back, when to let others make mistakes. And watch how situations start to bend in your favor, almost effortlessly. Combine this with everything we've learned so far. Observation, listening, silent presence, emotional clarity. And now, strategic timing. You are slowly becoming a master of silent power. A person who doesn't need to shout, argue, or force. Because the world already bends, quietly, to your control. In the next section, we'll explore how to read between the lines. How noticing the unspoken, subtle cues, can reveal secrets people think are hidden. And give you an advantage no one else sees. Number 7, reading between the lines. Sometimes, the truth is not in what people say. It's in what they don't say. In the pauses, the hesitations, the words they avoid. And the most powerful people, the masters of silent power. They notice it. They exploit it. They act on it, before anyone else even realizes. Let me tell you a story. A young analyst was observing a high-stakes corporate negotiation. One executive was speaking confidently, smiling, nodding, appearing calm. But the analyst noticed tiny clues. A slight twitch in the hand, a hesitation before certain words, a shift in posture. Small things, almost invisible. Most people would have ignored them, focused only on the words being spoken. But the analyst, the silent observer, saw the truth. He realized that beneath the confident exterior, there was insecurity, a hidden agenda, a weakness waiting to be exposed. By reading these subtle cues, by noticing what was not said, he was able to predict the executive's next move. And guide his team to take advantage. Without a single confrontation, without overt conflict, without raising his voice. This is the power of reading between the lines. It's about noticing what others overlook. The hidden signals, the unspoken intentions. And using them, strategically, to your advantage. Think about your own interactions. How often do you really pay attention to the small cues, the micro-expressions, the subtle inconsistencies? Most people are too distracted, too focused on speaking, on defending, on proving themselves. And in doing so, they reveal everything about themselves. The master of silent power, the Stoic strategist, sees what others don't. They know that the most valuable information is hidden, not in words, but in gestures, tones, and pauses. And once you can read these cues, you can predict behavior, anticipate actions, and make decisions no one else even sees coming. Here's the key takeaway. Start noticing patterns. Pay attention to tone, body language, micro-expressions. Notice hesitation, repetition, or what someone avoids saying. Because that is where the real advantage lies. Combine this with observing, listening, presence, emotional control, and strategic retreat. And you have a toolkit. A system of silent power that works invisibly. Turning knowledge into influence, and influence into control. All without a single word spoken. In the next section, we'll explore the strength in non-reaction. How refusing to respond, even when provoked, can give you the ultimate advantage. And make people reveal themselves, without you ever asking. Number 8, the strength in non-reaction. Have you ever tried to provoke someone, and they didn't react? Not out of fear, not because they didn't care. But because they chose not to. There's something unsettling, almost magnetic, about a person who refuses to react. It makes people reveal themselves, unintentionally. Let me tell you a story. A man was at a social gathering. Someone insulted him publicly, trying to embarrass him, to gain attention. Most people would have snapped, argued, defended themselves. But he didn't. He stayed calm. He smiled slightly, and said nothing. And then he watched. The person who tried to provoke him began talking more, trying harder, revealing their insecurities, their frustrations, even their true intentions. By the time the evening ended, everyone around recognized the silent strength of the man. Not because he had won an argument, but because he didn't play the game. This is the power of non-reaction. It's a fundamental principle of Stoicism. Emotions, when uncontrolled, are power, but only for others. When you control your reaction, when you refuse to engage in unnecessary conflict, you turn their energy into information, their aggression into insight, their noise into advantage. Think about it in everyday life. At work, in relationships, online, even in casual encounters. People often try to bait us, push our buttons, test our limits. The instant reaction, the defensive response, that's what they expect. And when they get it, they feel powerful. But when you don't react, when you stay calm and silent, you flip the script entirely. You become the observer, the strategist, the one with control. And here's the subtle magic: others begin to underestimate you. They think you're passive, unaware. But in reality, you're analyzing, calculating, positioning yourself for a move they'll never see coming. Non-reaction is not weakness. It's not submission. It's the ultimate form of silent influence. It gives you clarity, time to think, space to act. And often, it makes others expose more than they intend. Here's the takeaway. Start practicing patience, deliberate calm, and measured silence. Next time someone tries to push you, provoke you, or manipulate you, pause. Observe. Don't react immediately. You'll be surprised how quickly people reveal themselves. And how much power you gain, just by staying still. By combining observation, listening, presence, emotional control, strategic retreat, and now non-reaction. You are becoming a master of silent power. The kind of person who moves through the world unnoticed. Yet influential, strategic, unstoppable. In the next section, we'll explore how to practice silent power daily. How to make it a habit, a natural part of your life. So that your influence becomes invisible, yet undeniable. Number 9, practicing silent power daily. Silent power isn't something you just learn, it's something you practice, every single day. It's not about being quiet for the sake of it. It's about building habits that make your presence, your observation, and your influence effortless. Let me tell you a story. A young professional wanted to master silent influence. At first, it felt awkward, unnatural, almost uncomfortable. He tried to stay quiet in meetings, but felt like people were ignoring him. He tried to control his reactions, but old habits kept slipping. But he persisted. Every day, he practiced observation, noticing how people spoke, moved, reacted. Every day, he practiced listening, absorbing more than speaking. Every day, he practiced emotional clarity, pausing before reacting. And over time, it became natural. His colleagues began noticing subtle differences. He didn't need to raise his voice, yet he was heard. He didn't need to argue, yet his ideas carried weight. He didn't need to prove himself, yet people deferred to him, unconsciously. The truth is, silent power is built in small, consistent steps. Start with awareness. Notice how you speak, how you react, how you carry yourself. Notice when you feel the urge to interrupt, to argue, to react immediately. Then pause, and choose your response deliberately. Practice listening without planning your reply. Observe without being noticed. Control your presence without drawing attention. And slowly, integrate these habits into everyday interactions. From casual conversations, to workplace meetings, to personal relationships. Here's the key: patience is essential. Silent power doesn't happen overnight, it grows quietly, like a seed beneath the soil. At first, you may feel unnoticed, underestimated, invisible. But that's exactly where the strength lies. Because as you grow in control, clarity, and observation, others will start to notice, often too late to resist your influence. So your daily practice is simple, yet profound. Observe, listen, control, detach, time your actions, and pause before reacting. Do this consistently, and your silent power becomes a natural extension of who you are. By the end of this practice, you won't just influence others. You'll influence situations, environments, even outcomes. Without raising your voice, without confrontation, without needing approval. In the final section, we'll tie everything together. We'll uncover the ultimate truth about silent power, and show you how to truly outsmart anyone, without uttering a single word. Number 10, the ultimate truth of silent power. After everything we've explored, the observation, the listening, the presence, the emotional clarity, the strategic retreat, the non-reaction, and the daily practice, one truth becomes crystal clear. Silent power is not about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. It's about being so composed, so aware, so confident, that your influence becomes invisible, yet undeniable. When you combine all these elements, when silence becomes your strategy, you start noticing things no one else does. You see opportunities, weaknesses, intentions, hidden beneath the surface. And you act, decisively, strategically, without anyone realizing you've already won. The ultimate lesson of silent power is that words are fleeting, noise is temporary. But calm, controlled, deliberate action, observation, and presence, these are eternal. These are unshakable. These are yours to wield. So here's what I want you to do. Start practicing today. Observe more. Listen more. React less. Control your presence, master your emotions, and embrace silence as your weapon. If you found this video valuable, if you're ready to step into a world where silence gives you power, hit the like button, to Behind Mind's Secret, and turn on notifications so you never miss a strategy that can change the way you influence the world. And comment below, tell me, what's the first step you'll take to master your own silent power? Remember, the quietest voice often commands the most attention. And the person who masters silence, masters the world.